Welcome to the Orbital Drop Shock podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and today we are talking about Fall of Reach Invasion Fall of Reach Part 3 Invasion. This is the third and final, arc of the Fall of Reach storyline, which, once again, for those of you that don't know, this is the adaptation of Eric Nyland's The Fall of Reach that came out actually around the time that Halo 1 first came out. So this story's been known for a while, the Master Chief storyline about the Fall of Reach. And this particular volume is finally going to address the Covenant invasion of Reach. Is taking place around the same time as Halo Reach. Now, I know that there's been a lot of confusion concerning when Reach takes place in relation to the timeline, because remember, Reach is like no one knows the Covenant's invaded, but in this one, they do know the Covenant's invaded. And they're supposed to be taking place around the same time, so it's kind of muddled, but it's still a good story. All right, so the storyline opens up. Right, this was published by Marvel Comics. Storyline opens up. Okay, part 1. It opens up at a deep space probe. Actually, no, it opens up at a space dock. With the spaceship, the Circumference arriving at dock for like repairs and such. And so what happens is the Office of Naval Intelligence shows up, and because he says, hey, you can't be in here, and then Oni locks it down, and then it just jumps. And then next, the Discovery's not there existed. All right. So Jacob Keyes is being debriefed by UNSC High Command for the events of Chai Seti 5. Remember, he rammed a Covenant ship. He picked up this Covenant transmission. So he's being interviewed about it, and then he's saying, okay, so we're giving you your own ship. We're giving you a new ship. It's called the Pillar of Autumn. It's a Halcyon class cruiser. Now, interestingly enough, the Halcyons were like obsolete, because it's like they were, he says, they're slow as hell and damned ineffectual in combat. But the thing is that they are like, so according to Keyes, they're renowned for their overmass superstructure that makes them hard to kill, meaning they can take a lot of punishment in combat. So what happens is they tell them, okay, so we have an operation for you. You're going to so the operation will be revealed in a second. Now we switch back to Planet Reach in the facility called Painland. The Master Chief, John 117, is getting adjustments to his neural implants. So in case you guys don't know, all the Spartans have like a chip planted in the back of their neck that allows them to like monitor like health and stuff. So anyway, they're making modifications because Chief is going to be, first off, he's going to receive a new set of Spartan armor. This is the Mjolnir Mark V. What's special about the Mark V, if you remember last week from our discussion of the Covenant arc, they picked up a Jackal shield gauntlet to bring with them. And what Oni was able to do, it only took them like 25 years to do, was they reverse engineered the Covenant shield technology. So now the armor will have an overshield. And that's what protects you from most damage in the Halo games. In other words, that's how the armor got the shields. And now they're gonna fit. The reason why he was receiving those implants is because that way they could put Cortana, this artificial intelligence construct, into his head. Because the point is, he's supposed to transport her on a mission. Because what it is, Operation Red Flag. I'm gonna go ahead and go over it really quick. Is so humanity's losing the war. So they come up with this plan that if we capture a Covenant prophet, and the prophets are like the leadership class of the Covenant, if we capture one of their 3 main prophets from a Covenant ship, then we can forcibly negotiate a ceasefire, so they'll stop killing us. So they need him to bring her along, because she can interface with like Covenant like technology. So now, to test out Mjolnir, going back to the training ground, Chief is given a mission of just ring the bell on the other side of the compound. So Chief is attacked by several ODSTs. ODSTs are orbital drop shock troopers, the namesake for this podcast. They're basically known for jumping into what amounts to an escape pod and just rocketing down to the planet's surface to basically surprise the enemy. And they're supposedly supposed to be the best, but they just got torn apart by a Spartan full armor. And next, Cortana picks up. There are landmines on the Chief's training course. So what she has Chief do is, okay, toss a grenade, and then based on the detonation pattern of the mines it detonates, I'll be able to roughly estimate where the other mines are based on standard mine lane configurations. So next, he does that, and then he has to walk across a minefield pretty much, which is really, really, really stressful at this point. So next, he fights chain gun turrets, but then he actually grabs one, turns it around, and fires on the other chain gun turret. And he's about to get to the bell when a UNSC airship shows up and starts attacking him. Now, from here, we transition to a deep space, a remote sensing station in the corner of space. And these are basically supposed to serve as, think of them as early warning stations, just stationed throughout space so that humanity can know when the Covenant's going to show up. Then all of a sudden, they pick up like this massive like contact coming in, and it's an entire Covenant fleet. So what they do is they execute what's called the Cole Protocol. And what that means is they have to, it was named after Admiral Preston Cole from the Battle of Harvest. So the protocol dictates that if you encounter a Covenant ship, you have to first wipe your navigational database and take out your AI so that the Covenant can't learn the location of Earth. So they do that. They do the Cole Protocol. But then also what they decide to do also is they actually blow up the station with them inside it to make sure that the Covenant definitely can't get this information. So issue 2, back to Reach. The Chief is running from that gunship. And so what Cortana has the Chief do is, okay, it's going to fire a missile at you. I want you to punch the missile back at it. Actually, that's actually the Chief's plan. He goes, okay, I'm going to deflect the missile with my arm. And Cortana's like, wait, what? So he deflects the missile away from him, and not back at the dropship, away from him. And then the gunship is like flying around. So as it's around, he goes, I'm going to make a run for that bell. And he makes it and he rings it. So cut forward about, well, let me see. When does this part take place? This part, August 29th, August 3rd. So the next day, the Spartans are being brought aboard the Pillar of Autumn along with Cortana. They're on board, and then and now the Spartans are receiving the briefing on Red Flag. So what they say is, okay, the Spartan 2s have been recalled to Reach, because what's going to happen is that all of you are going to steal a Covenant ship and then take it to the Covenant homeworld, capture a Covenant prophet, bring him back. We're going to interrogate him and learn stuff, and then we're going to try and forcibly negotiate a ceasefire. Not even a surrender, just a ceasefire. Just get them to stop shooting us. Now, and now at this point, now the Covenant fleet arrives at Earth. So now what they have to do, so humanity on Reach has these. So first Cortana says, okay, so one of the ships that's docked with this station orbiting Reach, its navigational database was not wiped. So it has the location of Earth, in other words. So what Chief says to Captain Keyes is like, Captain, we have to put the operation on standby that we're doing, and I'm going to take a team to go wipe that navigational database, either take out the ship or however. So next also, so in orbit around Reach are what's called magnetic accelerator cannons. Think of them as rail guns, and they're like the best tool to use against a Covenant ship. Now, the thing is, they're being powered by generators on the planet's surface, and Covenant are landing troops. So what Chiefs does is he takes Spartan Linda and Spartan James with him to go take out the navigational database of the circumference. And then he instructs Fred 104 to take the rest of the Spartans down to the surface to protect those shield generators. And the Spartans split up into Pelicans. So now, the Fred's team is heading down to the plant surface, but then they're shot down. And then, okay, we crashed about half a click south of orbital. Okay, so they start. So Fred's team starts moving toward the Mac facility. Back in orbit, John's team is approaching the cradle. It's reached Gamma Station when a Covenant ship just appears above them. It like slip space jumps in, and so what they do is they like completely shut down all power on the Pelican dropship and just what's the word, drift over to Gamma Station. The reason for this is because they want to be as invisible to Covenant scanners as possible. So then the Pelican dropship crashes onto Gamma Station right as the Covenant ships are deploying landing craft to Gamma Station. So at this point, we also split to the space battle where we're seeing all the Mac cannons engaging the whole Covenant, the whole UNSC fleet is engaging the Covenant ships in direct ship-to-ship combat, which is hardly a fair fight because the Covenant ships are significantly more technologically advanced than the Covenant. I mean, than the UNSC. I'm just going to tell you that. It's not really a fair fight. In fact, there was a saying, I think in the Reach book, in the actual book, they have a prologue that takes place during like in the now time, essentially the modern times. And what's interesting is that the chief said, okay, so Spartans pretty much always won when we were on the ground. There's barely a battle where Spartans lost. The only problem is that we couldn't take that success rate to space because the Covenant was like, their space technology, their starship technology was centuries ahead of humanity. I'm honestly surprised that the UNSC never tried to apply a shield, like an energy shield system to their ships. I'm really surprised at that. And if they did, just drop in the comments. I'll be sure to check that out. All right, so yeah, the Covenant, the fleet is getting like wiped out, like really, really badly wiped out. But so now what? So the Pillar of Autumn it gets in a combat with a Covenant ship and takes out one. So back on the surface of Reach, Fred's team arrives at the generator facility and finds like a completely like a PTSD'd out Marine. And to give you an idea of what this looks like, you can go to YouTube and plug in like traumatized Marine from Halo 1 in the mission 343 Guilty Spark. That's pretty much what this is. So then Fred's actually it is okay. So the other Spartans see Covenant dropships coming in. And they decide, okay, so we're gonna get on the we're gonna go to the top floor of this facility because there's gun turrets, there's high ground, and Obi-Wan knows high ground's the best. And they decide we're gonna stand a better chance of winning this engagement if we can take the high ground. Back up on Gamma Station, blue team, and that's John's team, is engaged with the Covenant borders. And James Spartan 005 is about to plant explosives so they can like blow a hole in the station and get in. When he takes a plasma bolt to the back and just drifts off into space. So now blue team enters the facility because Alinda, the team sniper, shoots the explosives because James can't detonate them. And then so what we eventually see is like the teams, red team is like severely outnumbered, like really, really severely outnumbered because the Covenant know that if they take out those generators, the orbital guns are done. And without those orbital guns, the UNSC fleet doesn't stand that much of a chance against an entire Covenant fleet. So then what happens? So Cortana shows Keyes a tactical map, and you see like it's a bunch of red dots surrounding this facility. In other words, it's gonna fall. So the fleet has to be preparing for this. So and then Captain Keyes calls John and goes, okay, so you have like 5 mics before the Covenant have won this battle, have taken out those generators. So what I need you to do is hustle, son, because if I need to, I will nuke that station. The reason why they didn't do that to begin with is because they didn't necessarily, it wasn't like guaranteed that the navigational data would be wiped out. So they just decided. So at this point, Keys is like, if I have to, I'll just nuke it and be done with it. Just hope for the best. So John and Linda come across a few United States UNSC Marines, and you'll recognize Sergeant Johnson. In fact, these are the troopers from 343 Guilty Spark. There was that mission. There was that part of the mission where, like, you're watching the helmet cam footage. These are the Marines, the ones that get overtaken by the flood. So I love how I'm like, Sarge, what do we do? And then Johnson's like, okay, so you can die screaming or you can die fighting like a Marine. And then John's like, how about no one else dies? How's that option, Sergeant? I think I got this. I think I have a better option. So what John figures out is he gets on their Pelican, and he has Johnson. Okay, so fire at the windows of the circumference. I'm going to jump in there and then take out the navigational database. So he does that. At the same time, on the surface, Fred's team is running short of ammunition. Like really, it's a really dire situation. And the last we see of them is just this. The Spartans, and then right behind them is a bunch of Covenant ships just flying out there. So next, John takes out the navigational database, reboards the Pelican, and says, okay, so now we have to open the doors, the hangar bay doors, so we can get out. So Linda jumps off the Pelican, runs over to the doors and opens them. But as she's trying to get back into the Pelican, an elite zealot shows up and stabs her through the chest, through the back, as a matter of fact, with a Covenant energy sword, supposedly killing her. That's what we're led to believe for like a long time, that she was killed in this. But John, when he gets back on the Pillar of Autumn, he puts her in cryo because he figures, hey, the pod can at least protect her her life, can at least keep her like alive until we can get her proper medical attention. So at that point, John gets to the bridge and says, okay, so one of my team members was lost in the debris field. Can you like do a planetary scan and like see if you can find him? A station scan, not planetary scan. Still nothing. So we're meant to assume that James is dead. And then Keyes informs them we lost contact with Blue Team. With Red Team. So they're presumed dead too. So at this point, John is presumed to be the last Spartan 2 alive. So then what happens is the rest of the UNSC fleet retreats, like leaves Reach. So Reach has fallen. And so typically what happens is that if you're fleeing from the Covenant, you have to generate a random course through slip space. And slip space, once again, is their version of like going to hyperspace. You have to basically take random points in order to get back to Earth, because that way you first, when you flee the battle, you have to use randomized coordinates, because that way you're not pointing the Covenant ship to Earth. In other words, when you leave, the Covenant can't go, okay, so just follow him and he'll lead us to Earth. So Cortana goes, okay, so she's analyzing the data from that museum that we talked about last week, and she decides, okay, now these coordinates aren't pointed anywhere near Earth, so they don't really have to know that I'm picking these coordinates. In other words, they don't have to know that they're not entirely random, just that we're not going anywhere near Earth. So the Pillar of Autumn gets out, and then this is when Halo 1 opens up. And so, yeah, it ends right there. The random air quotes, slip space coordinates were actually the coordinates for Alpha Halo, which was known as Installation 04. In other words, the ring world from Halo 1. So that's Fall of Reach. So essentially, if you read this series or watched this series, and or actually the animated movie actually only covered like boot camp and half of Covenant, the Covenant arc. But anyway, if you just covered this, you would be fully prepared to just go and skip Halo Reach. We'll actually supplemented it with Halo Reach. You'll be more than caught up to grab the Master Chief Collection, just hop right into Halo 1. This is pretty much the story pre-Halo 1. How the Chief was recruited, how humanity first encountered the Covenant, and that was even more fleshed out how the humanity encountered the Covenant in the book Contact Harvest, which I'll cover at a later date. So that's the Fall of Reach. Once again, this was like my favorite Halo comic book series because what I liked about it, particularly this volume, is that it effectively communicated the hopelessness of this war. Because if you notice, as soon as the Covenant showed up on Earth, it was practically over. The fleet was getting decimated. Infantry was being overrun on the surface. There was like barely any chance. So essentially, it got down to the point where they already knew they were going to leave Reach. They just had to make sure that they didn't like leave any paths toward Earth. That was it. They knew they were going to end up retreating, which is really like surreal when you think about it. All right, so that's the end of that. And then let's see, what else can we talk about here? So as far as our next week's comic that we're covering, I am going to cover the series called Bloodlines, which follows another Spartan fire team earlier in the war. So I'm going back in time. It's either earlier or during at least 2552 or so, somewhere in there. But it covers like the more familial aspect of the Spartan program, and that it shows how close this Spartan team, Black Team, is as a family. And it's based on a Halo short story by the same name. Hope you guys enjoy our summary of Halo Fall of Reach. Once again, fantastic comic series. Great book, too. If you guys want to just read the book, that's totally up to you. It's super good. I would highly recommend it. And so let's see what else. So, and then so for those of you that are like, Jared, where's your Snyder themed episodes? It's just because the reason why I haven't been doing those for the past couple of weeks because there's not like a lot of significant news short of rumors. And I don't want to just constantly be like, oh, Snyder posted this, Snyder posted this, Snyder posted this. I basically covered what I needed to. And then until we get like more concrete like commitment whether or not they're going to continue the Snyderverse, I just figured right now it's not really worth it. So yeah, because so far the only news for the Snyderverse was just that Warner Brothers was super was quiet about the Snyderverse, which we already knew that. And then let me see. There was this one picture. I'm actually going to cover this actually because this is something I wanted to talk about. Zack Snyder Superman Nightmare, because he recently explained. Okay, let me see. What is this? When was this posted? Because he posted a picture from Man of Steel, which was the first like showing of him in the black suit, and explained like, and he basically said that this was the beginning of the Nightmare timeline. I'm just pulling this up because let me pull this up. Well, first off, Snyder said it would have the whole series would have already been done had Warner Brothers actually let me finish. So I'll be like, please do that. Please definitely do that. Let me see. I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find this Man of Steel. So basically, the point is, he posted. So there was a scene in Man of Steel where Superman and Zod are having a conversation on board the Kryptonian ship, but it's like a dream sequence, and you see Superman in the black suit, and he said, and he basically indicated that this was the origin of the Nightmare sequence. I'm just pulling up that picture so I can share my screen. Okay, it was this picture right here. Hang on, share. All right, it was this picture right here of him wearing the black suit in Man of Steel, because he did do that. It was like so supposedly that was like a Nightmare version. And if you notice in the background also, you could kind of see apocalyptic ships. Well, it definitely looks like the place has been like ravaged. In fact, he's falling into like skulls and things. So what I'm wondering is that's actually an interesting point to consider, because I'm wondering what he meant by this being the beginning of the nightmare scene. It could be just like Earth is destroyed, and when it's like when he's like Darkseid's minion, he has the black suit, even though in like the nightmare scene at the end of Justice League, once again, when I say Justice League, I'm referring to Zack Snyder's Justice League and not Craptus League. But anyway, in Justice League at the end, when they show the nightmare scene, Superman's in the blue and red suit that we all know and love, and we love the black suit too. But the point is, he's in that suit. So at some point, he transitions. It could also be that Superman, that the whole nightmare thing starts when Superman has the black suit, which we definitely saw that in Cyborg's nightmare sequence when he plugs into the Kryptonian scout ship. It shows that that one scene of like Darkseid approaching Superman and putting his hand on Superman's shoulder, and you see Clark's in the black suit. There's any number of ways that this could link to the nightmare scene, and I really hope that Warner Brothers decides we're going to continue the Snyderverse, because that way we could see this. We could finally actually see this whole thing go down, because a couple of weeks ago I covered like Zack Snyder's plans for Justice League. In other words, what he wanted to do. And so it would be like a Mad Max world, but with DC characters. So I'm like, who wouldn't want that? In fact, here's the funny part. So it's interesting how Warner Brothers didn't like Zack's like depiction of their DC characters, but you know who helped them? Who helped him come up with the story was Jim Lee. And in the Ann Sarnoff article, where she was talking about how the fans are toxic and all that, and she said we're not going to release the air cut and everything, she goes, "Oh, Jim Lee's a genius. We love Jim Lee." So I'm like, if he's a genius and you hate the Snyderverse, what? And also Jeff Johns helped him. So I'm like, dude, you just keep digging your grave, bro. And by that, I mean, he makes the situation worse for himself. I do not wish harm on Jeff Johns at all. But geez, once again, hopefully, I'm just really like hoping that we get some news soon that it could happen. Because it would be so awesome to wake up one day like I did May 20th, 2020, and them saying, okay, we're going to do Justice League Part 2 and 3. That could very well be one of the announcements at Fandom, like I've said before, because they have quite a few Snyderverse shirts, like stuff for Zack Snyder's Justice League. So it could be they're waiting, because I know Gal Gadot's pregnant, but they could always, but it's going to take a while for like Zach to actually write the script and everything, and then to get everything to production level. They could just say, okay, so right now, can we put you down for appearing in these movies, and then you're good. Because what they could just do, they could film both movies back to back, and what that means is the actors film all their scenes for both movies. In other words, once Ben's done doing all the scenes, he's done for both movies. Once Gal's done and all that stuff. So pretty much they could do this super streamlined and just be done with it. Because let me put it this way, if Warner Brothers were to do Justice League Part 2 and 3 and just say we're done, then I'd be like, I mean, I would love to see the Ben Affleck Batman movie and the Deathstroke origin movie. If I only got the Snyder movies though, I'd be like, at least we got something, because at least Snyder's story is done. He's seen his thing, his vision. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm still very confident still, more so with the merger, that they're going to do it. I'm just really wish they would just announce it now, but I know they can't, because they're still like crossing the I's and dotting their T's, and to make sure that they're not going to have any last minute dropouts of the Snyderverse. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this actually hybrid episode for Orbital Drop and Snyder News. Anyway, have a good week, everyone, and stay heroic. Bye-bye.